Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Acting President. Well, listening to the comments today, and I think to myself and a lot of other Australians were thinking, why are we taking up so much precious time in this parliament debating this issue? And it's because of political correctness over the years has shut us down from being able to have an opinion, have a say, and the thought police have intervened. The lefties were out there shutting us down from having an opinion on most things, really. And this is where this 18C has come into play. All I hear in this chamber is about the word racist comments. Now let's define what the word racist means. Racist means to believe your race to be superior to another. To make a comment on an issue doesn't necessarily mean that you are racist, but they use that word because it's supposed to shut down debate. And it's been used against me so many times over the years that it's become boring, without really debating the issue with me, what I'm trying to say. Over the years, I can say that a lot of people think that because you're white and you're a white Australian, you're not having racist comments directed at you. And I'll put you in point of saying what actually happened. You might be surprised that I've had racist comments said to me, but I let it go over the top of my head. It's water off a duck's back. And that happened in 1996. And I actually went out to have a meeting with some Aboriginal elders, and the media turned up. I actually said the media were not to be there. I wanted to have a sit-down and talk with these Aboriginal people, but it was set up and the media turned up. Well, when I approached the elders, they called me white trash, a pig in mud, and I was abused. So I just turned and I walked away. But the papers the next day, the Courier Mail, they wrote up the story, white trash, and the 7:30 reported the story. It was filmed. When I approached them and I said, well, what do you think about this? Not at that time because I didn't worry about it, but in a conversation later, and they said, so what? There was no issue about it. They couldn't care less. And I think that is what is happening over the period of time, is that there is reverse racism in Australia, and I think that's why Australians are feeling the brunt of this and they're fed up. That's why they are talking on Talkback Radio, they're talking amongst themselves because they are fed up with where the lefties have this debate going. Yes, there has been issues from the new migrants that came to Australia, especially after the Second World War, that came here. Yes, I've heard the terms that the Italians were called the Itais or they were called the Wogs, and these references were made. And I've actually mixed with the Greeks and the Italians and different ones at the fish markets. They were great mates of mine. We had talks, we had discussions, but the older generation just chuckled at it and laughed it off. They got on and they worked in with the Australians. Now it's got to a point in this country where you can't even look sideways at anyone, and it's not a matter of work, it's about we are all from different cultural backgrounds and races. But this push and this segregation, because that's how I see it, we have to start working together and stop being so precious that you can't even say anything to anyone. If you go to the 18C, the words offend, insult and humiliate. And I hear the other side say, well, what do you want to say now that you can't, what do you want to say that you can't say now? You're missing the whole point. It's not about what you want to say, it's the right of being able to have an opinion. Because I can look at someone of another culture or anyone and I might say, well, I don't particularly like your cultural dance, or I don't particularly like your cultural dress. That might be a personal opinion that I have, but they may be offended by it. So therefore am I, because of my personal opinion, that I'm supposed to be dragged before the Racial Discrimination Act? We have to get real here and stop, putting things in people's heads. I'll go back to the students from the university. 3 students turned up to use a room. It had Aboriginal only. That is racial discrimination in the first place. Why didn't those students go and take the head of the university, or whoever put that sign up for racial discrimination, for putting it up in the first place? But they didn't. They were accused of it. That is segregation. That is division. That is what is happening in our country. That is why Australians have had a gutful of it and sick and tired that this needs to change. Treat everyone on an individual needs basis, not based on race, colour of their skin, and we will have a much more harmonious country. Now, I'll go back to this as well. I was also I was charged under the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity. Well, a case was laid against me by the Aboriginals. I've got to put you in why this happened. When I stood for election in 1996, and I was actually elected after being thrown out of the Liberal Party, the next day after my election, I had a telephone call from the Australian who rang me up to interview me. Now, I actually did the interview and I called for equality of all Australians. And I made a reference to, the Greeks and Italians and everyone. The Australian printed the headlines the next day that Hanson refused to represent the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. This went on for 18 months. I was accused of this. Headlines, front page. And it came up many a time in interviews. That was not the case. It was not until I was taken before the courts with Sir Ronald Wilson, after listening to the full tape, that he came down with the finding that I never said anything racist whatsoever, that I was calling for equality for all Australians. I, of all people, which a lot wouldn't even think to be the case, but I do work with Aboriginal people, and over the years to actually assist them, and I've had many come to my office asking for assistance, and which I'm working with these groups. I will work and I will fight and I will defend anyone, regardless of their cultural background. That is my job as a member of this parliament and as a representative of the people of Queensland, and I've always been of that opinion. But in light of that, I'm also a very proud Australian who is proud of my culture and my heritage, and I welcome people that come to this country, always have done. That's the way my parents brought me up, and I respect people not based on what their race, or who they are, but on how I find them and how they treat me. The process of, and I'll go back to these university students, the claim was the woman or the teacher wanted $250,000. Now it was, after a stressful time, the students went through, and the cost to them of legal representation, she was asking for $250,000. What was that going to do? How was it going to appease it? All I see this is a process of monetary gain. That's what it is, and that's what a lot of people are using this all about, monetary gain, for no other reason. And I had Gillian Triggs in my office, the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, who said to me, 18C needs to change, it needs to go. She deals with this, she admits it. In some ways, when I think about 18C, we've had Shady come out and say AIDS, divine punishment for AIDS victims, for AIDS, or women will be hung by breasts in hell. What about those? Do I hear the people from the left screaming about these comments? Do I hear it? I remember one time saying that the women, the way they dress in this country, are nothing but the meat market and deserve to be raped. Where's the left? Where's the Greenies? Where are the others screaming that this should not be said? What about signs, of people speaking out against us, the Australian people? All I see in our country now is the others on the other side of this house or on the crossbenches. They're screaming out for the rights of the migrants and everyone else that comes to this country, but they don't stand up for the Australian people. I don't want to see division in this country. I want to see everyone treated equally and on the same basis, on a needs basis. And that is what a lot of Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders want as well. Because what's happened over the years with laws that have been brought in here is causing segregation and separatism. And that's what we don't want. They don't want it. They don't want to be treated any differently. But if you continue to make the laws that show that division, it is not going to be right or good for us. We are all Australians together. The words now, to actually go back to the wording, offend, insult or humiliate. As I said earlier, anyone can take offence. Everyone has a different opinion on what may offend them. A lot of people get offended very easily, so then they're going to make their complaints. Insult, humiliate. I think to reduce the words to harass and intimidate, I do support that. We don't want that happening in our country, and some people do need that protection. But I think to say the words offend, insult and humiliate, I think that's too broad, and it's up to the individual how they feel about it. This all comes down to the pub test. How does the average Aussie feel about this? That's what it's all about. And I will say, if people have found my comments because I may raise issues that many Australians talk about in their own kitchens or around their own barbecues, and they talk about it but they don't come out openly and say it, these are the people that voted for One Nation in the last election. That's why there are now 4 One Nation senators on the crossbenches. If I was saying things that were offensive to the Australian people, we wouldn't be here. They would not have voted for us. So I represent a good majority of the Australian people out there. And just last couple of weeks ago, to have got 3 seats in the upper house in Western Australia is a clear indication that the people want representation from One Nation. But we are here with an open mind, not to shut down the people from whatever race, where you are, to give everyone the right to have a say, to have an opinion, to be part of this country, to join in to be Australians, and that's what we stand for. Shutting this down is not the answer. To call people racist or bigots, as I said, the word racist means to believe your race to be superior to another. I have never, ever said that, and I challenge anyone to actually show me anything that I have said that has been racist. And you use the word bigot. There are many people, and I'm sure everyone in this chamber is a bigot in their own way, because you can be intolerant of another person's culture or their religious beliefs. That is human race. That's who we are, because we are proud of our cultural background. But it's about having respect.
Time for this debate has now expired.